Okay, let's talk scatter plots. Everybody remember that? All right. So here's a set of data. Okay. So we've got year, and we've got the household credit market debt in trillions of dollars. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is graph this as a scatter plot. So we can see just how clearly it's growing. We can see that, but how is it growing? Is it linear? Is it hopefully not exponential? Is it power? Okay. So let's check that out. So who can tell me what to do first? Okay. That. And then what? Edit ... Okay, so I will have a video of this if you don't have your calculator today, or if you would like to write down step by step exactly what to do and I go too fast, you can just watch it back later. I would recommend just following along. I'm surprised today at how many everybody really remembers. That's not been the case in years past, so our substitute teachers must have been doing a good job. Okay, so here's your stat menu. How do you clear a list if there's already numbers in it? Move your cursor up so that you're highlighting the name of the list, and then press clear, and then enter. What happens if I go to clear a list and I accidentally hit delete, and oh no, my L1 is gone? Well, if you go to the stat menu, and then shimmy on down to the setup editor down there, select that, it pastes it to your home screen. 009, what is that? And then you just hit enter and say done. That resets up your stat editor. Hey, L1 is back. And it didn't actually empty it. It just removed it. That's kind of cool. I actually learned that this morning from Kevin Beagle. We were just playing around, and I was like, hey, I wonder how. I knew a cheating way that kind of got the list back. And he was like, oh, let me just randomly hit some buttons. Yeah, I figured it out. So if we move the highlighter up to L1, clear. Okay, now I got my empty list, and as I already hear a lot of you doing, typing away. The quiz over this is probably one of my favorite quizzes, because everybody gets that last problem, and all you hear is. Now, probably my favorite quizzes are the ones where it's half calculator, half not. I'll say, the whole quiz is no calculator, but you get your calculator for the last 5 minutes. So everybody gets done with all this work, and I'm just staring at the clock, and they're looking at me. Finally, I get, okay, go! And it's just mayhem. Just, woo! Hilarious. Hey, so I've got all my years plugged in. Always pay attention to the problem. Sometimes the word of the problem in such a way that's like, let your x-coordinate be the number of years since 1995. Well, if that's the case, then I'll actually plug what number in for 1998? 3. So just pay attention to that. Make sure that doesn't trick you. All right, next we go 6.0, 6.4, 7.0, 7.6, 8.4, 9.2, 10.3. It's very important that the number of numbers you have in list 2 matches the exact same number of numbers you have in list 1. Okay? If you have more y-coordinates than you have x-coordinates, or vice versa, when you go to graph your scatter plot, what are you going to get? You're going to get an error. Now learn what your errors mean. This particular error you'll get is called a dim mismatch. That means the dimensions, how big your lists are, aren't the same. They don't match. Okay, so to graph a scatter plot, the dimensions have to match. 7, 7. Okay? So learn, if you ever see a invalid dim. How many of you have ever gone to y equals, tried to graph an equation, and you get invalid dim? Happens a lot, right? What that means is you are actually trying to graph a statistics plot, but you don't have any numbers in your list. 0 is an invalid dimension for a statistics plot. And the thing is, you probably weren't trying to graph a statistics plot at all. Well, you probably had plot 1 turned on, even though your lists were empty. So learn what these errors mean and learn how to fix them. Because if you're in the middle of a quiz and you call me over and you have a mismatch, I will call you out and make fun of you in front of the whole class. Okay, now that we've got the data entered, where do we go to see it? Y goes second y equals stat plot. So here is a summary of all of our statistics plots. You can have 3 of them on at a time. You can see all of them are turned off, so pick one to turn on. So first thing I'm going to do is turn it on. I want to make sure the type is set to scatter plot, not line graph, not histogram, not box and lister. Make sure whatever list you type your data into are selected. I used L1 and L2, most of you probably did. And then because we're not graphing many points, use the big old square. So all I had to do is turn it on. And that's it. Hit graph and you should be able to see it. There it is. Oh, I got some other curve here. A lot of people, it freaks them out when they have their scatter plot with the curve on top. I might go clear that out. But there it is. Isn't that a gorgeous scatter plot? How come we don't actually see it? Yeah. This is going 0 to 10, but the first number is 1998. So that's like Mrs. Zimmerman's room somewhere over there, right? So how can I fix that? Well, I could press the window button and manually type my own window range in. It's pretty easy to look at this data and pick a good window range. Or I could go to the zoom menu, and there's something called zoom stat, the 9th option, that will actually do that for me. So if you select that, view. Pretty cool? So everybody remembers that from Algebra 2. Okay, what's the next thing we'd like to do with a nice set of data like this? Want to find an equation that goes through all those points, right? Well, that's impossible. Can I find a line that goes through all 7 of those points? No, it's impossible. You know, I see curvature in them. Those points are not all collinear, but what can I do statistically? I can find a line that fits the data as best it can. We call that line a linear regression. We call this regression analysis. Linear is not the only type of regression you can do. Okay, who remembers how to find the line of best fit using the calculator? Go to Stat, go to the Calc menu. Now, for those of you that have newer calculators, it actually takes you to a menu. They've really made it like, you know, stats for dummies. My calculator is not fancy enough to do that. Before I show you that, if you look, the 4th option is linreg, where A is the slope and B is the y-intercept. But if you go to the bottom, the 8th option is linreg, with B as the slope and A is the y-intercept. Just make sure, and it doesn't matter which one you use, just make sure you know which letter represents what. I don't know why the calculator puts both in there. It just confuses people. Just hopefully just being aware of it will prevent it. I would just always use 4. If I hit enter right now without typing anything else, will it work? It actually will, because I typed my data into L1 and L2. However, if you have multiple lists, you need to tell it what was your x-coordinate list, what was your y-coordinate list. So to play it safe, I always just say second 1 to type L1, then a comma, second 2 for L2. Okay? If you type your data into different lists, you type those lists instead. So I hit enter, and there it is. A slope of 0.7107, a y-intercept of negative 1,414, and then who remembers, first of all, who's not seeing these argvides? Okay? Again, if you have a newer calculator, just go to Mode, And then you should have next right here that allows you to scroll down to a second page. You want to turn Stat Diagnostics on. Now, who is not getting our values but does not have this menu? Okay, so T83, what you'll want to do instead is from the home screen, go second 0, that takes you to the catalog, and then press the button corresponding to the alpha letter D. And you want to find Diagnostic On, and select it. And then from the home screen, you want to run that, so that it says done. That's it. And it'll stay on as long as your calculator doesn't get reset. It's a one-time thing. Okay, so with the Stat Diagnostic on, whoops, that's not it. I get these R values. Who remembers what R is called? That's what it is, what's it called? The correlation coefficient. It's called the correlation coefficient, yeah? And the closer it is to 1, what can you tell me about your data? Someone Marble called it? Marble's wrong. I don't know. I don't know what else you can call R. When you are actually calculating regression analysis, you use things called residuals. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not an expert. Like, I don't even know how these lines are calculated. You can learn that in AT stats. Anybody in AT stats, by the way? Not many pre-calcs use AT stats this year. What's up with that? Slackers. Why wasn't the whole 7-period day? Okay. So, correlation coefficient. The closer this number is to 1 or -1, the closer your data is to being truly perfectly collinear. If you get the number 1, like if you were to do a regression analysis on only 2 points, you'll get a 1. Or a -1. What's the difference between a positive correlation and a negative correlation? The slope. As I move from left to right, is my data increasing? As I move from left to right, is my data decreasing? It isn't the slope, right? Slope is 0.7. But 0.989, that tells me that this data is pretty darn linear. That's pretty good. Okay. R squared, it's just the square of that number. It's just usually a little bit more discriminating. 0.979, that's really close to being linear. So you remember this? What if I wanted to graph that line on top of my scatter plot so I can see just how close it hits my points? Well, you could write those numbers down if you wanted to like spend all that time writing. I don't. I'm pretty lazy. So instead, what I do, go to y equals. I'm going to tell my calculator just paste that equation right in there. Ready for this? Everybody find the bars button. Every variable your calculator has available, you can find from this menu. So like if you're in AT Stats and you want to find sigma later, you can find it, and it will actually have the standard deviation you just calculated stored in that variable. So we want to find a statistics variable, so press 5. Okay? And then we want to shimmy on over to the EQ tab. If I were to select A right now, it would have the actual value of the slope stored in it. If I were to select B right now, it would have the actual value of the y-intercept stored in it. If I were to select R right now, it would be 0.989. But instead, I want to select that first one, the regression equation. Watch this. Paste it right in there. So awesome for lazy people. So now if I hit graph, look at that. Beautiful. Yeah? So then here's something we could do. We could go to the window. Let's change Y max, or let's change X max to like 2025. That'll be the year my daughter graduates high school. If she graduates. It might take a couple years. He's saying, if anything, she'll be early. So now I can use the trace button on my calculator to test new dates. So let's pretend that this debt continues to increase according to this linear model, approximately what will the total household debt be in the year 2012? So we say 2012. Oh, shoot, I forgot. When you first hit trace, what am I tracing right now? The scatter plot, not the line. Do you know how to switch what you're tracing? Up and down arrows. So if I press up, now I'm tracing the line, and I can type 2012 to trace immediately to that point. And you can see, I can't see it, but if this trend continues, the household debt will be about $15.66 trillion. Make sense? Do you think that's per household? Clearly it's not. I would have to guess that average suburban debt per house is probably like 150 to 200,000 for the houses. Cars, credit cards, those price payments, college. It is a lot of money. You buy, and here's the kicker, let's say you go buy a house when you're a little older, you buy a $200,000 house. You borrow that money from the bank, even at a good interest rate, like 6%. You know how much money you will actually pay?
Please excuse this interruption for 2 afternoon announcements.
Pay the bank back at the end of the 30 years. Probably close to like 600,000. Times more than that.
Again, may I have your attention for 2 announcements. Auditions for the theater production of Wind in the Willows will not be taking place today after school. The auditions will be held tomorrow and Thursday after school in the PAC as scheduled. Again,
why are you listening to these? I'm going to try a quadratic
production of Wind in the Willows will not be taking place today, but they will take place tomorrow and Thursday. Please sign up at D158 for an audition time. If you have any questions, see Mr. Stowell, Office Theater Director. And secondly, attention juniors, the list of names drawn for the junior parking lottery will be posted tomorrow on the windows of the main office after 6 period. Thank you. Have a good day.
Pasting quadratic doesn't work on all versions of the calculator. It's an error. So I just tried to paste the quadratic regression equation. It didn't work. But it might on yours. They may have fixed it. All right, so I got now. Please pace yourself in the homework. It's huge. Maybe do a little bit right after school, a little bit after dinner. Promise me you won't stay up past 3 in the morning to finish this homework. Please. Suckers!